Welcome to this weekend's Bucky call, April 2nd and 3rd, depending on which continent you're on. Henry, how are you feeling today and what do you expect to get out of this call?
Hey, feeling great. Good to see you all. Today, it's more just to catch up with you guys and everybody on the call, just to find out, just to learn a bit more, because I've been out of the picture, so I'm just the rookie sitting in the background. Love seeing you all, and it's really good to touch base. And
Good.
That for me is more important than anything else. So there's always something to learn. Manu, how you feeling? And what are you going to get out of today's call, mate?
I feel emergent, just waking up now. I'm happy that you're back, and also welcome back. And I'm open. That's what I expect. Han, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Han?
Oh, all right. Sorry. Yeah. I'm glad to be back. Yes. And I don't foresee anything going on for the next 3 Sundays, so I should be. I'm happy to be here. So looking forward to catching up with all your discussions to see where we're going and where we can take it further. Definitely for the education side. Okay. Right. And Kelly, how do you feel and what do you expect out of today?
Well, as normal, I'm feeling tired, but other than that, things are good. What do I want to get out of the call today? I just like listening to people, and I don't contribute as much as I used to, but I like to listen and see what's going on around me. And it's important for me for my Sunday. This is the only day a week that I've got a couple hours where I've got structure. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And well done on your funding it. Susan, how do you feel? What do you want to get out of today?
I'm super happy to see all these wonderful people, and just that spirit of being with people who want to learn and experience and share is tremendous. I would like particularly to get more about application. I think we're starting in the bonding realm, which has been something I've explored through chemistry and kind of the physics side, but boy, would I love to see it applied in relations, relatings, and interrelations. Joseph, how do you feel and what would you like to get out of tonight?
I'm just happy to be here. It's nice to see you, Henry. It's good to have you back. It's good to see you. I'm looking just to build on what we've been talking about with bonding and go over it. Looking forward to hearing people's comments and looking at the Jitterbug. We can't look at that enough. So I don't know if we plan on going over that again. Yeah, I'm just looking to, just take in everybody's feedback. I'm looking forward to getting started. It's good to see everybody. Steve, how do you feel? Do you want to take?
I feel like the astronaut, the reluctant astronaut, because this whole concept of the Jitterbug, vector equilibrium, bonding, and how all this moves is profoundly significant. I feel it changing my brain, and I'm with Susan. I want to apply it practically in terms of my interpersonal relationships. And I'm looking at how this affects the geometry of thought. Of course, Bucky's talking about how it affects the geometry of everything. And I've got some slides here because that I pulled out, things I want to show you relative to this bonding and vector equilibrium and the Jitterbug. So I'm going to share and let everybody share their perspective, and that's how we're going to grow and go. Manu, I hope you have your magnets. going. I have your pictures you sent me, and I can share those pictures. But it'd be cool if you have the dexterity in this wee hour in the morning to to share some of that stuff. So really good. So that's what I expect today. Do you have your magnets, Manu?
Let me just see if I have something.
Okay, well, and I'm just going to show your pictures. I think what we're going to do. I think what we'll do is we'll watch the jitterbug thing one more time. Bucky talks about bonding at the end, and there are several aspects of this jitterbug that I've watched now 5 or 6 times, and I'm just getting a glimpse. So I think what we'll do is start from the beginning, play it all the way through. You guys make notes of what you are capturing this time that you didn't capture before, and then let's see what applications you guys have right off the bat first time through, and then I will show you what I've got in terms of things going on here. And if Manu has his magnets things, we'll show those. I have pictures of how to build this cuboctahedron and what these radii are all about and what this vector equilibrium is, because I am not seeing consistent feedback even from Bucky sites on exactly what vector equilibrium is. So we'll start with sharing the vector equilibrium video one more time, and then we'll come back and do some other stuff. And here we go.
Vector equilibrium where the radii have been removed, that is explosives. And equilibrium is a completely unstable condition. That is, when we first had submarines, we used to fill the water ballast tanks so it was just at equilibrium. And then if anybody happened to just drop a monkey wrench over, we could throw the ballast out and they would tend to nose over and get into great deal of trouble. When we began flying, then we came to what we call the star. Star is simply a point when at equilibrium at the star, anything can happen, can go any kind of a spin. Nature abhors that equilibrium. She always, everything you and I know will always be one side or the other of the equilibrium. At any rate, this is the most expansive form of these vectors that I gave you. Now here's vector equilibrium. Can everybody see this all right? And I'm going to take this top face and move it lower towards the face on the floor. And this top triangle is not allowed to twist. You can only approach the triangle on the floor. You have 2 planes approaching each other. Understand? So this means this vertex will always be towards you. Yeah. And the vertex on the floor is towards me. So I'm going to do this. Suddenly, it's collapsed to where the square are changing. They become diamonds, then ridgepole diamonds. Now the distance between the vertexes is such that the line is exactly the same as the other vectors. Therefore, I put in 6 vectors there, and you have the icosahedron. This is icosahedron. Vector equilibrium then comes down to the first stable form, which is icosahedron. Vector equilibrium itself consisted of 8 tetrahedra, each of the volume of 1, 6 1/2 octahedra. Half octahedra is 2, so 6 and 2 is 12. 12 and 8 are 20. The vector equilibrium volume is 20. And so it now collapses correctly. I want to say that 20ness of the vector equilibrium gets tightened up into the icosahedron with another set of vectors. The 6 more are introduced, or 1 more unit of quantum. Now I'm going to keep lowering that triangle total on the floor, not twisting at all. And now it suddenly contracts to become the octahedron. rotating in space, a group of stars. There's a mass attraction pull of another set of stars, and when then this is trying to turn, and then it restrains this. What happens when you do that would be then, I move this around, it forces it to contract. If it's been forced to contract that way, then remember, notice it's rotating this way. This rotates more and plunges right through and becomes the tetrahedron. We've gone all the way from vector equilibrium, icosahedron, octahedron, vector equilibrium. The octahedron is double bonded, tetrahedron is quadruple bonded, quadrivalent we call it. This way diamonds are in respect to carbon. We have no point to break open. So the maximum space employed by unity is a vector equilibrium, but all the structures are within it. They're contracted form from the whole. Now notice that this can then tetrahedron. I had it plunge that through like that. This can then immediately reverse itself and tetrahedron can turn inside out. The other way. Just absolutely spontaneously. There's basic pumping. Okay. That identifies vector equilibrium and introduces a hierarchy of accounting.
Now, sometimes we ended here, but there are some slides at the end that are very important at the end. There's that accounting issue. The cuboctahedron equals 20. There's the cuboctahedron. And I guess that's it. Okay. Comments or questions, things that you noticed that you've always noticed, things that you noticed for the first time. I've got some things, but I don't want to just be talking. You've watched this many times. What's the most important part to you? What do you see in this jitterbug, in this cuboctahedron and the collapse and expanding? Make it real practical, as practical as you can from your terms. Shall I call on somebody?
I think it's interesting. We get almost to the very, very end. And even though there's captions on a lot of things, Bucky says the words essentially pumping is what I heard.
Yes.
As it moves through that event horizon where that tetrahedron flattens, like spontaneously moves through a planar moment and then expands through the opposite side of the event horizon to reverse itself. And so the idea that that's a pumping action, I thought was, and that pumping could occur as it moves from an icosahedron to an octahedron, and it's got a rotational element to the pumping, or it could occur as the tetrahedron's flattening through the event horizon and moving to the whole different perceptive.
Absolutely. The pumping thing, he says at the end that tetrahedron is pumping, but he says at the beginning that the octahedron is pumping.
Yeah.
And he points to the triangle at the top of the cuboctahedron and the triangle at the bottom of the cuboctahedron. He says this is a plane. This plane at the top is moving towards this plane at the bottom. And as it squishes down, and especially when he goes into that tetrahedron, it looks like it hits a flat plane. It looks like it's two-dimensional, but it never is. It's folding through itself. It's always three-dimensional or multi-dimensional, I think is more accurate, actually. And then pumping back through itself. Exactly. How does that relate to life?
Well, when I look at this, I look at the jitterbug as the bones.
As what?
The bones. All you see is the bones.
Okay.
You don't see the circles or the things around them, all you see is the bones. So as you're going in, you're seeing very clearly that it's going from triangle, pushing down to triangle, but it's through the bones. And then it folds itself and unfolds itself. So that's what I took away from it. And also unity is plural at a minimum of two, because you've got the inside, which is the bone, and the outside, which is the sphere. And then you have, 12 equal spheres or whatever.
Right on. I think this pumping action is really explained by this graphic right here. It seems to go into a flat plane just for a second, but that's just because of the perspective of where I am locally viewing this tetrahedron. And it's actually pumping through itself. So the top becomes the bottom and the bottom becomes the top. And it's constantly pumping. It seems to be planar right there. It looks planar. It's never planar. It's never a circle. It's always a sphere passing through itself. Any other comments or questions?
Let's see, even on that, Steve, each one of those spheres or whatever you want to call it is a point on the thing. So it's like the bones coming in and out.
Right.
And then you've got all the actions going on between and around.
Right. Now notice when this hits the plane, it almost looks like a flower of life. And I'm going to show you that in just a second here.
Can I make a comment there?
Yeah, please.
Okay, what I get from vector equilibrium is this thing first, is that any finite system that is dynamic goes through a minimum and a maximum in terms of compression and expansion.
Yes.
That's the first thing I got it. Every structure, every system has poles. That is the referential that doesn't change.
It has poles. Is that what you said? P-O-L-E-S. Okay, good.
Yes, because you look at his demonstration, the two triangles at the top and the bottom didn't change.
Right.
Okay. And then third, what you get there is that if there is a system and there is accounting, there's a unit of account. That unit of account is a tetrahedron. Is a minimum, how will I call it? I don't want to say value. Is a minimum volume and highest density, whatever you want, that it is, that you can have with that system.
That's an important factor. It's the highest density. So when he's out in the Cuboctahedron, he has low density. He goes down to the Icosahedron, he has greater density. He goes down to the Octahedron. At that point, he says those are double bonded density. Then he goes down to the Tetrahedron, and that becomes quadruple bonded density. So that's an important point, Manu. And we can watch the video again to reaffirm that, but I wanted to reaffirm what you just said. Continue.
And the fourth is you have a hierarchy. And that hierarchy of accounting is very well defined, it's discrete, but it is orderly. Within the continuum that is inside of a structure. In other words, you're moving, and then say, for example, you are in the process, in the phase, the compression phase.
Right.
You compress, you get into one stable stuff, and then you compress again, you get into another, and then you compress until you get to the minimum. That is a hierarchy. And each of those has a specific volume that you can use for counting. In other words, now when you come into the combination of your division of your system and you're combining to create synergies, you can count. And you can count in units that are well identified. That is further to everything else that was said. That's some other kind of comments I can make on demonstration of vector equilibrium.
Any other note, anything else you noticed? Any other questions or comments?
I got one. So,
Go ahead.
when he started the vector equilibrium, is that the biggest structure that he had? Is that what he's trying to say?
In fact,
He
he's
said that
saying
is the maximum.
that
is
is
the
the
maximum.
maximum.
Yes.
Right.
So it can be,
Because you've got finite worlds, you've got finite minimum and finite maximum.
exactly. And that's the finite minimum and the finite maximum.
Yes.
Because and then he's saying that structure there, it's unstable. It
Yes.
doesn't
He does
stay
say
like
that.
that. It's going to
And-
Yes.
evolve. So I
Yeah.
was thinking about that when he talked about it, and he said he talked about the plane and talked about the submarine, and there are points in application in life, I guess, when you get to equilibrium, something's going to happen next. Something always happens next. And I remember I did a bungee jump once, and you jump, and you're in the air, and for a split second you go, I'm in the air, and next, boom, you're gone. Something
Yeah.
will happen next.
Yeah, there's that moment where I'm floating. I'm not yet
Yeah.
falling down. I'm no longer going up. I'm now suspended floating. That is vector equilibrium. Yeah. And it's kind of confusing because in some places I read that vector equilibrium is most stable, but he says it's not stable, that nature abhors that, and that we will never see vector equilibrium, that we're on one side of it or on the other side of it. And I think this really has to do with like being able to look at the other side, whether you want to experience the vector equilibrium below the plane, the horizon, or expanding above it. There's two sides to every freaking thing. So I think going along with what you said, I'm going to show a couple of these octahedra and different pictures of octahedra here. This, one of the things he said, I'm going to do this last. Let me do this one last. Okay, here's the, this is still the wrong one to do. The reason why this is the wrong one is you see these pink lines in here? He says at his outset, vector equilibrium where the radii have been removed, those explosives. This pink stuff in here are the radii. And he says they've removed those in order to make it more pliable. What makes a cuboctahedron is that every line that you see, lines don't exist, they're actually spheres. But if we want to extrapolate to a line, every line we see is absolutely equal. These radii are equal to these lines across the equator, to the hexagon. Can you see the hexagon through here? This is a hexagon. One triangle, two, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a hexagon. And every one of these, the radii and the vectors out here, are equal in size. This is what creates the universe. And I want to show you, there are more pictures. Well, we'll go ahead and show you more pictures. Here's another cube octahedron. And in this case, to help us, the triangle on the top is solid, but notice how the squares are hollow in this diagram. And the triangles appear to have a face on them, and the squares appear to be hollow because I think they're actually octahedron. They're actually half of an octahedron is what I think they actually are, but I'm not sure of that. And here's another view of a cube octahedron that a lot of people see. The others are more standard because the triangle is definitely on top and on the bottom, and the squares are on opposite sides, but this is another picture that we will see. And there's actually an animation with this coloring that I could have shown you. But here's something that I want to share because I think this is kind of interesting. The tetrahedron grid, this is that tetrahedron grid. This is the cube octahedron. If I come over here and I expose this, I wanted to kind of hide some of this stuff, and maybe I just screwed it up. So let me come back here. There we go. And then we'll take this. And we'll delete this. I get overwhelmed when I see too much information all at once. And I think this chart is kind of overwhelming. But do you see, oh shit, pardon me. Okay. This is the tetrahedron grid. This is a cuboctahedron. There it is. This is the cuboctahedron exposed or superimposed over the top of this tetrahedron grid. And notice there's an octahedron outside and an octahedron inside. And probably there, and if we look, there'd be an octahedron inside that, an octahedron inside that, an octahedron inside that, all the way down to subvisible, no matter where we wanted to go in the universe. And this is the same as the flower of life or the seed of life over here, but this is a spherical representation. And some people have seen a thing called Metatron's cube. This is Metatron's cube, but it's not an it doesn't show as an octahedron, actually shows as a cube instead of as an octahedron. If you can see this, we could take this line right here, these lines right here, this could be the top of a cube, and there could be a cube represented right in here. And I have one of those, and I was going to show it to you, and I didn't find it in time. But here's our cuboctahedron. This is more spherical. Here's spherical packing. Here is this. These are all the same thing. Except Bucky starts with a cuboctahedron without the radii, or like this. Jitterbug results in a toroidal collapse towards singularity. Comments, questions? Okay. What does that mean to you? Shall I call on somebody?
Ask Refers. Seeing he's late.
Perish in the light. My God.
Oh, Rafa is there. Wow.
Yeah, just got here. Sorry about being late, but anyway, great to be here.
Well, I think, Manu, if you wanted to show your magnet showing the triangle, the two triangles off of the cuboctahedron, that would really, I mean, off of the square, I can show those pictures, but if you can show the actual magnets and show how they move, I think it would be really exciting. Manu, after we talk.
Which one? I mean, maybe show first, show first the other one, Steve.
Which other one? I'd like to see this one. I want to see this one right here.
You want to see that one first?
Yeah, can you do that one?
Yeah, it's here.
Okay.
I mean, but I showed there, you know, how you get it.
Well, I know. So do you, you want to, I want everybody to see how that square folds over into, okay, well, this is the necklace. That's good too. Show that, because these are the triangles. I'm going to do what I can to make you show up for the whole group.
People can actually pin Manu's screen, actually.
I did. Okay, but those are all triangles. So what he's done is he's just twisted that to create a necklace. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because that can lift it up a little bit higher. See, and then it goes straight. Yeah, it's like a lattice.
But yeah, I would like you to show the PDF, Steve.
Show which one?
The PDF.
The PDF. Okay, good.
Yes,
I'm showing it as a. Oop, I'm sorry. I need to push a share button. I sent it to you as a PDF, and I've got it here as a. Whoa! I've got it here as a thing. The one that you just showed.
Yes. The way you start is actually you start with two. You should see the first one there. You start with two tetrahedra. One is yellow, the other one's red. You just open them to make them convex.
Now, when you do that, and Manu, I'd love to have you build the. Oh, good. Well, now we have two tetrahedron. These are planar.
Yeah.
This is planar at this point. It has not become a structure. And
Yeah,
Manu,
no.
I would like you to show this thing in real life, and I want you to take and show how this goes into a square and squishes into a diamond. And I want to talk about the diamond shapes. If you could build that guy. What Manu just showed us was the necklace formation, which can be twisted into, and if it's more than one dimensional, becomes a DNA or an RNA molecule or a really good representation of it.
Okay, but what is interesting is this one.
Okay,
Is
hang on.
that you need the addition of that green for it to twist. You know, like the square that is allowing the twisting. The
Right.
twisting in whatever angle. And then you structure it with this green, the green that was on the side. Then you have all of the triangles like that, and then you can get. It's just a simple exercise.
Yeah.
It's how, you know, the tetrahedron unfold, go to flat, and then twist to make a double helix.
Right on. And I want to show not the double helix. I want to show any comments or questions on what Manu is showing you right now.
Well, Steve, I get the structure, understand structure and how the structure kind of twists and turns, evolve. I'm still missing the connection between that and the real world kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to show one more thing, and if you want to brainstorm that, let's brainstorm that, because
Yeah.
ultimately that's where the application comes in. And I think it's important to understand this cuboctahedron. Comments and questions of what Henry just said. How can we make it something we can apply in real life?
Well, for a start, I think we apply it to real life. Like looking at all of these pictures and seeing all of that, all we see is a bunch of pictures. But if you go into Synergetics and you look at the hierarchy of generalizations, you go through all of that, and then you go through omnisensorial accommodation, and it talks about the tree and how it applies to a tree. And then you can get a sense of how it would apply to each one of us.
Right.
Looking at geometry all the time, all we see is geometry. We don't actually see what it does. And so in my view, we spend too much time looking at the geometry instead of saying, break it down. And so if you look at his hierarchy of generalizations, cosmic hierarchy of comprehensive embracing, integrity. Then he's got synergy. Then he's got cosmic integrities, and he breaks it all right down to finally there's 17 senses of me, what me is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get a sense of what those are, you get a sense of what you are, what you can be. But if we keep looking at pictures of geometry, all you're going to see is the geometry, not how it applies, in my opinion.
So Kelly, you said it was hierarchy of generalizations or general principles?
Hierarchy of generalizations.
Okay.
It's on 692 of Synergetics. We've gone through it 100 times.
Still learning.
Yeah, but when you look at it, it sort of breaks it all down into, you know, single, double, triple. And when you're getting into it, you're starting to see what he means, like synergy. He's got a picture, he's got pictures of integrity, pictures of synergy, pictures of cosmic integrity, nature, and all of that stuff. And then he brings it in that way. And I think that we're going far too wide on the geometry. And the more we talk about the geometry, the more confused we get. Because the geometry will just keep repeating itself.
Yeah.
The thing that you have to understand is there's a bone structure, and the bone structure is the jitterbug. And when you look at that bone structure and you say to yourself, okay, these are the bones. Now, how many times do they repeat? So when you look at it like that and you say to yourself, okay, Well, how many times do they repeat? They'll go to minimum or micro, macro, or macro, micro, and then you'll see it all. But when you get into this, it's it's the way I've always been able to see fuller.
Well, what section are you looking at?
I'm looking at hierarchy of generalizations, page 692, Synergetics.
Give me a number. Is there a section number?
692 in Synergetics.
Page 692, the number is 1056, hierarchy of generalizations. You know, I think it's great to look at all of these different examples that you have of the bones, but all they are is the bones.
Yeah, they're like wheels on the car to me, and I want to understand the wheels on the car. I have section 1056 here.
Yeah, that 1056, yeah, hierarchy of generalizations.
Right. I'm looking at it. I have it. So here it is. Hierarchy of generalizations. So we can read this and see if it makes sense. I think there's some amazing things going on in that cuboctahedron that show how squares are actually triangles.
Yeah, and they're a hinged triangle. But in saying that, showing it in 1,000 different ways doesn't change it. It's a hinged triangle. That's what it is.
Yeah, well, it doesn't change it, but it helps me understand it. And I'm sorry I'm so pedantic and struggle with that. To me, it was a big revelation. So to know that an icosahedron is squares that are what he calls ridgepole diamonds, and to know that those ridgepole diamonds are octahedra, that was a big revelation to me, and that's what I wanted to share tonight. But let's read this epistemology then. If this
okay, so Steve, where I'd start with is his formula of universe, which is the last bit of it. It says, and then it gives it greater than or lesser than. Keep going down, keep going down. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
I am.
Keep going.
I enjoyed the 13 forms of me, by the way, when we did that.
Okay, no, up a bit. Up a bit. Where in the hell is it?
Is there a number by it? I can do a search.
No, it just shows all the symbols and then his formula. Right there, his formula right there.
Okay.
So if you read the formula, his formula is essentially the two dots with the circle around it. It's greater than synergy. It's greater than nature. It's greater than otherness. It's greater than we, others. And so you have your hierarchy of order. Can you see the formula now?
Well, yeah, I see the two dots. I see the bow tie or the two dots.
No. When you go across, you
Right.
actually
Right in
see.
here.
Yes, right there. That's his formula.
Cosmic integrity, yes.
He identifies me, you, they, others, we, nation, cult, humanity, and cosmic integrity.
Yes. But when you're looking at that, you're saying, how does this fit together? Well, it fits together that way.
And if you translate these symbols, I think you said it goes from cosmic integrity includes.
No, it's greater than.
It's greater than.
That's right. It's greater. This is greater than this. So this
Yes.
includes this, but it's greater than. What does the S stand for?
Synergy.
Okay. And then N stands for nature.
Yep.
O stands for,
Otherness.
oh, otherness is here. Okay, otherness, and U stands for,
U stands for universe.
okay, which is greater than all of this, which is humanity, because now for these symbols right here, they're defined up here. So
Yeah.
it's greater than humanity, greater than occult, greater than nation, greater than we, I and you, greater than you, and greater than me.
Yes.
Mhm. That's a hierarchy.
So when you're looking at it,
Is that cosmic accounting to a certain degree?
well, that is cosmic accounting.
Okay.
He's saying that when you go through it all, these are the various steps that you go through. Now, when you're pushing that, the jitterbug to the floor, you're going through all of that.
Wow.
It's a solar system. Star systems. And he has this is definition.
And he goes from metaphysical to physical to central.
And then from Earth, he goes into biological.
Now, all of those pictures that you show all do this. They're all about this.
Yes.
Comments, questions? Let's read through this.
So the cosmic in the cosmic integrity, that's in his mind the vector equilibrium. That's the maximum.
He should be explaining cosmic.
Well, he does. So if you start at 1056 and then go down through it.
Because the vector equilibrium is the maximum expandable shape.
He starts at epistemology after, it's the first thing he starts on. So he's not real consistent. Some of them he explains, some of them he doesn't. Who wants to read? Joe, do you want to read tonight?
Sure, I can read.
Start right there.
Wait a
Epistemology.
minute. Epistemology. Can you close that? There, thank you. 1056.01 epistemology. The more we know, the more mysterious it becomes that we can and do know both ought and not. The number one a priori characteristic of the entirely mysterious life is awareness, which develops gradually into comprehension, only to become aware of how inherently little we know. But that little we know, or may come to know additionally, is every subject to further vast integral exploration, discovery, differentiation, and comprehension.
Questions and comments on that?
It's certainly the life cycle that we watched, that I went through as myself, and that I watched in my kids, that they become more and more aware, and they get to the moment where we think we're really cooking with steam, and then all of a sudden we realize, oh man, there's so much more I don't know now that I can apprehend even that there's more to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it relates nicely to what Bucky says about we know a little bit about something. So we all know something.
And each one of us knows a little bit of something.
Exactly, yes. A little bit of something, yes. That's exactly it, yeah.
And so when you look at the geometry that we've been looking at, it's like those people know a lot about something.
Yeah.
But they're putting it in a drawing that makes it really very hard to actually apply it. So when you apply it to something like this, you start to see that each one of those points in the vector equilibrium is a meaningful point.
Mhm.
And each one is different from the next one.
Do you want to read O2, Joseph, please?
Absolutely. 1056.02. Nature is all that we think we do know, plus all that we don't know, whether or not we know that we don't know. Whatever nature permits is natural. If nature does not permit it, it cannot and does not occur.
Mhm.
1056.03.
So, but before you say that, what does it
Sure.
say about nature?
Nature is all we know, what we think we know, and everything we don't know, basically.
And if you get to a point where it's not happening, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter how much you try, if it's not nature, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Mm.
It
There
also
is point
means
there.
So what?
Hold
so we
on.
haven't.
Hold on. You get into the process of searching. It doesn't happen. That doesn't mean it can't happen. So whatever you do, you are always looking from the inside. And you are prodding towards veritas. There will always be something left that you don't know.
Yes, of course. And
So-
at that
so-
moment, it becomes a matter of timing.
Yeah, but yes, that's where
So now it's we may not know it today, but we'll know it tomorrow. That's timing.
yes, but in the design today, you need to put into your process some stuff that say, okay, this is at this point of my process, that's where I stop to use whatever I've learned
Yeah, that's what we
in
all
designing to improve your lookup. That to me is the application of it.
Yeah, and at that stage, we're all that curious. That's why we have curiosity,
Mm,
and we push it,
yes,
and we push it, and we push it, and then when we don't think, then we push it.
and if I-
that's basically the process that you have. You know, you build something with a certain quantity of, I would call it knowledge that you have. You build a system, a structure, or whatever that it is. And there are parameters within which that structure is valid.
Yeah,
And
and
then
so if you're building,
either you can wait for the obsolescence of it, or you can test it. In other words, you know, test it against, that's what, for example, in aircraft, test pilots do. Is that this is a structure, we don't know what it is, but let's try it against this challenge to see if
Yeah.
it can overcome it.
but within the binds of the single bond, double bond, triple bond, and quad bond.
Yeah,
So
that is a general, that is a principle.
yes. And so when you're looking at it, it'll start off as a single bond. So when a new idea comes along, quite often it'll be a single bond. Then it'll move to a double bond. Then it'll do to a triple bond. That might take 100 or 1,000 years, or 2 seconds.
But then at this point, I distinguish between general laws that are principles and generalized laws that are based on the experience or the use, that are inductive.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
well, I think understanding the nature of the structure helps me design and predict what nature will permit and what it won't permit, because while it says here, if nature does not permit it, it can't happen and does not occur. But if it is occurring right in front of my face, then nature is allowing it. And so there is a law there that is being applied. When this cuboctahedron, that square in that cuboctahedron, when it starts to compress, that square turns into a diamond. The diamond, he calls them diamonds and ridgepole diamonds. A ridgepole diamond is two triangles. And he says that we have to add a vector in order to stabilize the structure to have the icosahedron. So then you add in that vector. If you take it out, you've got equilibrium, and this thing can smash through and actually break through a barrier, and it's natural. Nature allows it because that's a square. Unless it's a ridgepole diamond, a diamond with a vector. He says in this thing, he adds 6 vectors in that octahedron in order to create the icosahedron. So now we have 2 ridgepole diamonds. Here we have 1 ridgepole diamond and 1 diamond. So understanding the structure helps me predict and build my business. So,
Steve.
Yeah.
Just now you said something about what is natural and unnatural, right? So what we're saying here today is, or what that statement in 1056.02 is saying is that a lot of the things that we human beings comment, oh, that's so unnatural. That is so unnatural. The minute that it happens, because it can happen, that means it's natural, right? It is part of nature.
Right.
Correct. Because it's not given by nature. So, so this is something that we have to. It's literally turning the things that we are looking at, the things around us, on its head, because it's a human construct then that says what is natural and what is unnatural.
Yeah.
Right? That.
No,
Yes,
I
very
wouldn't,
good point, actually. If we
but
look
I
at
wouldn't agree with that.
No, you don't agree with that? Well, I
No.
can see examples of
No.
social construct versus nature.
No.
For example, we talk about countries and borders. That's not part of nature. That's a construct.
No,
Human
but
construct.
nature is the set of all possible happenings.
Yes.
Yes.
So whether I experience it or not, it is nature.
Yeah, but again,
I
my
mean,
example
let's
was-
just say that imagine a world there were only Manu and Rufus, right? And we live, let's just take the example of planet Earth. We live somewhere in Borneo, and it never snows. Because we haven't experienced snow doesn't mean that snow doesn't exist. So my experience of it is important to my understanding, but it's not, my experience doesn't validate the fact, the existence of anything.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Manu, I'm thinking in terms of more like, this in vitro fertilization and all that, right? And because a lot of people say that that's not natural, but the fact is that it looks like we are manipulating nature, right? But the fact is we are part of nature and we are making that happen. Then doesn't that make, IVF?
It's part of nature.
It is part of nature.
But what I understand you saying,
What is going to happen?
and is nature, what we understand by it is natural. It is, I understand that maybe there's a bias to be, it's natural to my well-being, me. It is not. It's neutral vis-a-vis me. It happens. Or maybe I did not understand you properly.
Well,
I'm
and
just-
what Anne says is pretty scary, because what she's saying that, okay, I just created in vitro fertilization. My next step, and I just watched a video with Elon Musk and Neuralink, is to put electrodes in my brain and actually interface with a computer. And nature is going to let that happen. And we can make laws about not letting it happen, how it's unethical, but somebody is going to do it somewhere, and it's going to be a great movie.
Yeah, but that's the exact point, Steve.
Exactly.
We don't know where it's going to get to, but it's possible.
Yeah.
And being possible, it's part of nature. Now, if you look at Dolly, the experiment of the sheep, right? If you look at that, they were able to recreate the sheep, but they didn't create the sheep with the same outcome as a naturally born sheep. It
Right.
died early. It had problems with arthritis. It had all of those things going on. So that when you look at it, even though it's possible, it's something that you steer away from. And maybe that's the lesson that we have to learn. There's some things you steer away from.
Let's put it in other terms. There's nothing that I can combine or do that hasn't happened somewhere in the universe. There is nothing that with my intellect I can even conceive of doing that hasn't happened somewhere. I'm bounded by the limit of the universe.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the universe and part of the universe, everything that I can do is being done somewhere.
I don't agree that everything that you can do has been done somewhere. There's still plenty that can be done, and it builds upon something else. So when you look at it and you say, okay, to get to in vitro fertilization, just think of how many thousands of years it took to get to that.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that happened overnight. It's not something, in the last 100 years, you've had incredible movement in that. But it's one thing building on something else. It's a single bond going to a double bond, going to a triple bond, going to a quad bond. So
I haven't said that has been done by humans. I've not said so. I've said
it's regardless. Right now, we're talking about our species.
Okay, but are you saying that there is nothing that has ever happened in nature, unbeknownst to us, that is in description, like in vitro? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that when you look at it, if nature allows it, and it could be something that's been tried 1,000, 1,000,000 times by some human somewhere around this planet, and it didn't work, and then all of a sudden it works. Why did it work? Why did it become natural?
Well, if I think, let's just take this in vitro stuff. Nature experimented procreation for I don't know how many.
We're still experimenting.
Yeah, but until it succeeded. Because why is it, why is the in vitro different from a biological receptacle that is a female having a fetus in the uterus? What is different? I'm just talking about in terms of principles of things done. So if I'm doing it artificially, whatever I'm doing, I'm putting together the mechanics of something that is being done by nature, independent on me. Yes. That's what I'm saying. So nature, I wouldn't invent, I would not invent nature. Nature will happen. And I will learn about the happening of nature. It is evolving.
Yes.
Doing things.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't disagree with you, Manu.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, that's what Bucky says when he says we are meant to actually at some stage create stars. I mean, that's part of understanding. how nature
That's what
works.
our job is to create
Exactly.
stars.
Exactly. But that's again understanding how universe works, and then we can even create stars. I mean, that to me is his point. It is already in nature. Nature knows how to create stars. We can get to that level of knowledge again by expanding what we know today and moving forward until we get to that point. But again, to get to that point, before we get to that, we have to make sure we don't become oblivious, which is the risk we face, and that's why Bucky talks about that specifically. I mean, we can build utopia, and that's a problem to be solved next, or oblivion. And we see it today.
Raphael, you are to the point, exactly to the point there, is that it is macro understanding the principle,
Yeah.
but pulling them down to engineer our condition, local condition in such a way that we are repeatable,
Yeah.
and in such a way that we are, for as long as we can, regenerative.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know that we cannot be infinitely regenerative, but for a while we'll be regenerative.
Yeah,
so the A
absolutely.
schools, and you'll be able to, I heard on the thing at the end, somebody asked you, okay, what's your passion? What are you doing?
Mhm.
What keeps you going, and what are you doing for your, I guess, for what you're doing to continue without you? I think there was that question.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
So what are you doing for the concept and the structure that you put together, not only to be replicated, but to last for as long as it can do good?
Mhm.
Thank you, Man, for asking that, because I'm like bouncing up and down. Actually, you all can't see this because of the discussion today. I just realized something really, really massive about education. Just now that structure that kind of turned inside outside of itself, and so the whole idea of inspansion and expansion. Because I just got the signs for a meeting I'm going to have with this guy by name of Jerome Glenn. He's the executive director of the Millennium Project. I'm having a meeting tomorrow night. So the Millennium Project has got about 15 issues that they're looking at that the world has to solve. And number 9 on the list is education. So I've been told over and over again that there's nothing moving in education because nobody has a solution, right? So the discussion for tomorrow is for us to actually take on. I said I'm on. If they like it, they like what we're doing. I'm ready to take on to impact it, on a more global level. So this guy, he is based in New York, but and a futurologist at that. So what I realized.
So why is it number 8?
Yes, exactly.
Sorry?
Why is it number 8? Education
one.
should be number 1.
Absolutely. Yes.
Number 9 actually on the list, and everything is happening for all the other aspects, but nothing is moving in education, was something that they
Yeah,
realized.
and it's because of the way we think.
Exactly.
And if we thought about it, we'd say education is number 1. What we are learning, what we're taking on board is the most essential thing.
Yeah.
And if we embrace that, we wouldn't have all the problems that we have. Putting education at number 8 means there's 8 priorities or 7 priorities in front of it. No way.
I agree.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Education, education, education.
In fact,
Okay.
I would say it's the lack of education that puts education at 8 or 9.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Right?
That's interesting.
So
Absolutely. Yes.
keep going,
realized-
Ann.
I realized what happened with education because Erica, my daughter, pointed out to me a number of years ago that what started off during the time of Plato and Aristotle and all that was called classical education. And classical education was observing and exploring and discovering the universe and the world around us, right? And I realized over the past thousands of years, it kind of shrank down to that one thing, which was the individual. because it was all about individual, all about
Esto es
exam,
video.
all
Así que tú puedes hacer esto.
It's all about economy, not individual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
So when you look at it and you say, how does the individual interact with economy? And then you start to go from there. And the reason why it's number 8 is because it's economical.
Yeah.
And the second you make it economical, you make it what it's not. Education is education, whatever you're taking on board.
Yeah.
exactly. So when you say that, because it's down to that individual, because on the ground, as an educator, what we're struggling with the parents who believe in that the marks for that individual and it's not collaborative. And you're right, because of that one thing, it doesn't fit into the economy. Like what I mean is that when the individual comes out, it's hard for them to grow because the world is collaborative. It's the universe. There's this unity and collaboration going on. The synergy that's happening.
Collaboration and goes on as long as it's talking about economics.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you
correct.
talk about
When
cooperation.
you exclude economics, there's very little collaboration.
Yeah, that's true.
And so anyway, I realized that what we've been doing, and that's why it's getting, I realized that we were looking at the way it's done, which is purely on the academics. So we wrapped around it the humanity, around all subjects in the education system, especially in Asia, right? We wrapped around the humanity. But right now, I realize that we are going outwards, into the economy, which was when we added in entrepreneurship. And today, we've got another thing that we're doing, which is doing everything in education in the real world, right? So we brought in the environment. So we converged education, entrepreneurship, and the environment, right? And the structure that we've created seems to fit into whether the kids want to do sports or whether they want to do break dancing for the Asian Games and the Olympic Games, or even esports for the Olympic Games. So we realized we got a structure for that. But the point is that I realized that what we are doing is actually moving it out and expanding it back to the universe, And so I'm really excited about that because it's got the
You're
science.
expanding it out to the ether.
Yes.
Really, because it's not going to become anything else because it's already there. It's already economic. And so the second you take it economic, it's like we have a real hard decision to be made in the next 20 to 30 years. Is it going to be economic or is it going to be humanity?
Humanity.
Yes. And I think
we're on the knife's edge right now.
and I think it's about, I think the people who are focusing on the economy to understand that that's what it's going to take, for the economy to grow. And I don't know, let me think about that some more.
Yeah, but it's the very fact that the economy doesn't need to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
What it needs to do is take care of humanity.
Yeah.
Right.
Take care of everything else. And the fact that we're always thinking, we're always caught in the conundrum of economy. It's that ingrained. And so it's like whether you're a warmonger or an educator, you're caught in education, or you're caught in economy.
And that's because at least so many of the education systems that have been set up came from that economic.
Exactly.
They need to support the economic status quo where a small number of few beings are advantaged at the cost of all others.
Exactly.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And so instead of being a growth economy, a vertical economy, it needs to be a regenerative
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
that cycles back in and supports humanity.
Yes.
Yep. So yes, I think at the big picture level, that's what we're going to have to work on, that it's the economy and the humanity together, not.
Yeah, and I think your job, Anne, is to emphasize that education is far more important than economy. And I
Yeah.
mean, I know they're not going to like it, but they're going to get it because you're an educator. And you're going to say, of course, you're going to be biased towards education. But of
Well,
course you are.
She doesn't
Yes.
have to be biased because her programs involve entrepreneurship. This is what's so exciting about Anne's programs is the kids learn something, then they build a business out of it. That's what your kids are doing, right?
And then
Yeah.
now we're at environment. So it's always about value. It's about creating value, massive value. It's about win, 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 win. Three wins, 4 wins, 5 wins at the bottom line is even better. And I realize it takes a very different education to create or to grow and nurture kids like that, but it can be done. We've been proving that, just that we don't have the statistics. And the question I asked during the show was this: how do you measure, or quantify, when kids are happy coming to school, and how do you quantify when they have better relationship with the parents? And I guess there are more questions that can be asked. How do we quantify when the kids know how to take care of the environment and thrive, economically? Those questions, no one has the numbers to, right? So, because on the last day, the third day, the guy who owns the show, Vincent, one of the judges, he asked me this question because he said that, and a lot of them are talking about the billions, and I realized, how do you quantify these things that, and I'm glad they saw that what we're doing is going to create the impact outwards, yeah. So, but thank you. This is
Yeah, and of course it comes down to the billions.
Yeah.
yep.
So
And-
if we think
and-
about precessional effect, the money can come off at 90 degrees if the goal is, if the bee is traveling towards the flower because that's what it wants. At 90 degrees, it creates life possibility for all our crops. If we as human beings, as spiritual integrity units in this cosmic accounting, are moving towards greater relationship and interrelationship with each other, with our biosphere, you can create all the goddamn money you want.
Exactly.
Exactly. And you create money. Exactly right.
And the key is regeneration. In other words, am I creating something that regenerates, that generates what is needed in the community instead of just profit? Because as soon as I create profit, I capture that energy and stick it in a bank, and it does nobody any good.
Well, the fact is,
But
the
Steve-
second you create profit, you create stagnant because they'll maintain profit over everything else. And then when they create the profit, it's often too late before they change into something else. That's why you have the different companies becoming something else.
That's why
I think-
our world is in jeopardy right now. That vaccine cost £5 to generate, and they sold it to the UK for 200 pounds. And just put the money. I mean, they just made the profit. Things are crazy. It's not regenerative. Go ahead.
But I think there's one point that is being, I'll just say overlooked here. The characteristic of, let's just say, 20th century education has been that of fixing a goal and just going in the direction of whatever it is, that goal, and that's it. It doesn't conceive education as a dynamic, multidimensional, spherical process
Yeah, exactly.
that require what you call the natural principle of practice and exploration. Practice,
Yes.
exploration, practice, exploration. In other words, like I always like the example of that, locally in your school, you have that somebody, once you have identified something really clear, practice, practice, practice to know it, but being allowed to go out and really experience the unknown, being kind of how will I say it? You know, experience the unknown. Go explore. So practice exploration, practice exploration. That's what to be. And it is a life, when you conceive like that, it's a lifelong stuff. Because you are open, close, open, close, open, close.
Yeah,
All the time.
look at that example right now, Manu. If you go up into the war zone, they're now giving them all kinds of military equipment to test.
Yeah.
Right. And they test and they test and they test and they get the same bloody result. People die.
Yeah.
Buildings crumble. They've got all that shit going on. And it's going on because they take it from an economic point of view. Oh, we can't fly there because we'll cause a war. You know, we can't do this because of that. And in real terms, we're stymied by what we know instead of what we don't know.
Yeah.
And if we took on what we don't know, might be better than what we know.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about, and when you talked about quantifying, is that what you're doing is you're doing actually what Bucky wanted people to do, is enable people, give them the opportunity to do whatever it is, to create, to build,
Exactly.
in nature, to find their genius, and give them purpose without worrying about the economic factor.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. And if you can give that vision, it's something else. Because if you give particularly young people purpose, then they'll grow, they'll expand, they'll create their future in their design, in their way. Because one of the biggest problems, even globally, and it's really big here, is mental health. Youth and mental health, finding purpose. You look at suicide rates now around the world. In this country, I think there's more people dying from suicide than there are in car accidents. That's how big it is. So that's the angle I think is worth pushing.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, what you're saying there is quite, dramatic in some ways. I know of people, right? They zoom through to the PhD. They got into some big corporate, and they got they're just doing the same stuff. And in their 60s, they suddenly realize that they are not relevant because, one, their family fell apart. They didn't have time for their family. Their health fell apart. They are isolated and they feel incompetent because disconnected. The corporation for which they gave their life kind of say, okay, you guys, you're no more useful. So you feel like you're no more wanted, but you are so scared of out there because you realize all of a sudden that you are naked, that you don't know much. And then there is no utility that you can, there's nothing that you in your head you can offer. And that is a big, big problem. And as you say, the person attempted suicide that I know. It's just very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult.
Well, it's not so difficult if you accept education for what education is. Everything.
Yeah.
It's knowing that everything's going to evolve. And knowing that you've got a place there, and your place is part of the evolution. No big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, our job is to find generalized principles to be applied. I mean, that's what we're here to do, rather than here to make money or get into war or spend billions in weapons.
Well, I find it fascinating that this country can give away billions of dollars in the last couple of years because of COVID, and they're billions of dollars or trillions of dollars in debt now, and they still find more.
Yeah.
And more and more. and they find it. I don't know how they find it. They just have this mystery thing called a bank. And then they go around that and they start to say, oh, well, we need a few more dollars. When are we going to learn that money is just an idea?
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, how you can you keep track of it is one thing, but there's so much wealth on this planet today that there's hardly any need for money.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think also there is, in terms of practical way of taking it, it is first and foremost the responsibility, say, of a family to really kind of make the choice of education. Because the big people thinking, there's always the risk of Fabianism. I don't know if you know what I call Fabianism is. I know, I decide for you. And that's the way it is. And that's what happened with the vaccine. We know what it is. This is a vaccine. You guys take it. And it's just a bias towards one way. You should let people have a choice for and assume the consequences, because if there is any consequence, you also need to be accepting it. It happened. It's already it's something that happened. The best you can do in that circumstance is to learn from what has happened. I mean, amongst us here, there are people who took vaccine. I took. There are people who didn't. But that was my decision. There is somebody else's decision. We still living life. And there will be some consequences of one choice or the other. But it's not the right of anybody to tell me that that's what I have to do. And if I don't do it, else. Okay, enough of my rant.
Can we read some more, Steve?
Sure.
Almost time.
Oh shit, we don't have it up. Oh, there we go.
1056.03, that there is an a priori unknown is unproven by the ever unscheduled. Can you move that hand?
What hand?
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Unexpected succession of revelations of additional theretofore unknown, unconceived of generalized principles, all of which are discovered and experientially re-verifiable as implicit in universe. It is also retrospectively manifest that this progressively amplifying knowledge discovered by intuition and mind as constituting eternally operative cosmic relationships was revealed only because of intuitively pursued frequent reconsiderations of information complexities redrawn from the ever recallable special case experience inventory stored in the human's brain neuron bank. All that is known emanated exclusively from the previously unknown.
Makes you
Goes to
love
your
the word
point, Renee.
apprehension.
I'm sorry.
What, Susan?
I was gonna say, makes you love the word apprehension, and I'm sorry because I didn't hear Kelly.
I said it goes to Manu's point.
Yeah.
It's
What did you
like,
say, Ken? I didn't get it, please.
it goes to your point, is that, you know, it's recallable and it becomes more recallable and more recallable as we start to experiment more and more and more. And then eventually we get a breakthrough, and then we break through, and then something else starts to go to a single bond. And then you start to work on it, because there's thousands of single bonds going on everywhere. And they're just looking for that information. And so when you look at the information, it's being, it's coming into us from, you know, the human brain neuron bank. So we can pick up something and seemingly not pick it up, but it'll be there. And then all of a sudden, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, I don't know how many times I've done that, where I've thought of something and then I've left it for a year, and then all of a sudden, boom, it blows up. So it's working in the background.
Mhm.
And don't you kind of love the word realization? It actually is describing the process. You are making it real in the process of moving from apprehension to understanding.
Yes.
Mhm.
We are constantly, we are ceaselessly, let's just put it, special casing and calibrating with the help of generalized principles. We are always, you know, we build anti-anthropic whatever things that holds until maybe we build it according to what we knew, and it doesn't hold, and then we reconsider. Something that was thought to be generalized, maybe is no more just a special case. That is part of something that is more general. That has been always the process of discovery. It's never a straight line. It is zigzags, and it is back forth.
It's a spiral, actually.
Yeah.
And that spiral is moving over the surface of a double torus.
Exactly.
So the way I think about it is, I think about this little thing whirling around, and it's a single bond, and it's looking for something to
Or
bond
something
with.
else. Yes.
It's always looking for something else.
Mhm.
And then when it comes together, it hinges. And then together they start to play the game of hinging. And then it moves on to double, triple, and quadruple bond. And so it doesn't matter what it is, it's always going to follow those sequences. It's going to be this one little thing looking for something else.
Mm.
Always.
It just made me think about something, an experiment here, right? If you put water in a container and you increase the temperature of water, I mean, in other words, you heat it, you put heat into it. What does water do, Susan?
It changes state to become a gas. It vaporizes.
No. I mean, just let me just put,
It expands.
Yes, but how does it, when you expand, how does it manifest in a limited space?
There'd be an equilibrium established between the amount of gas and the amount of water based on pressure and volume and temperature.
What I wanted to hear is that it spirals. It definitely spirals. If I have a container that has water, say water at 60 Fahrenheit, and then I bring that water to 100 Fahrenheit and increase further, you're going to have motion, and that motion is going to be spiral. It's going to be spherical. That's the way it's going to go. So the spherality of the dynamic of the content is from the boundary that was created That is the container. And it is alike what our minds does. The mind, the way it processes is by dividing, goes and divide things into parts, right? And look for a relationship between those parts. That's the way we think. We divide a whole into parts, and we look at how they interrelate.
So Manu, would you say when you divide them into parts, then they start working towards bonding?
Yes, and that's what, so the mind is like the heat energy that you put into a closed system, right?
Yeah.
To create a motion that is going to be, to create motion of what the content is, that is going to be bonded in ways that gives you a picture of its constituency, is how it's organized. That's why from the part now, we look at the bonds and then we infer, generalize something that allows us to understand it, a law of that system. It was just a thought. Maybe it's not relevant, but it's something that came to me as Susan was talking. I think Susan, yeah.
Okay.
Because accounting and whatever we do to understand is accounting of parts and parts of a system that are interrelated in certain way that we can see some patterns that allow us to count. And we can say, we can define as a relationship between those patterns that are additive or multiplicative to give us an understanding of a characteristic of a system.
Cool. Are we complete on that paragraph then? We have more time and we can proceed.
1056.10 Cosmic Hierarchy of Comprehensively Embracing Generalizations. 1056.11 equals integrity. The cosmic intellectual integrity manifest by the universe, the orderly inner accommodation of all the generalized principles constitutes a design. Design as a concept of ordered relationships is apprehendable and comprehensible exclusively by intellect. As the human mind progresses, draws aside the curtain of unknownness, the great design laws of eternally regenerative universe are disclosed to human intellect. Shall I keep going?
Let's pause and see comments and questions there. Thank you, Joe, for pausing.
But that's what we just discussed, Nana. That is always, what we don't know is greater than what we know. And progressively by probing, actually by dividing more, we kind of, through, back and forth, peel off or draw the curtain of unknownness, even though it is immense. But there's a little something that we know, a little bit.
I think he introduces mind there.
Mind there, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
it's saying that the mind, now I've got to be curious and ask what the hell's a mind?
Mhm.
Just that very, very thing causes me to say, well, what is a mind and what is human intellect?
Yes.
So it's like, I've got this thing that's watching over me, which is my mind. And that's how I see it. So whenever I'm doing something, the thing that I like to do is meditate and just let my mind wander and see what comes through. Because it's not really in the realm of the physical. It's in the realm of metaphysical at that moment.
He introduces the word regenerative here as well. And it seems to me that everywhere on the planet, everything is regenerative until human beings get involved. Then it becomes hierarchical. And I think this prophet is part of the problem. That's where the process stops and it starts to accumulate and it's taken out of the system.
Yeah.
Well, it creates a new system in
Right.
reality.
Yeah.
And
I think
then
it
you have to start to ask yourself, does the new system work?
Work.
And
Yes.
that's what we're getting all over the world today with the younger generation around 14 to 18. They're starting to ask, is this working?
Yeah.
Far more than we ever used to ask.
Mhm.
Or they're just busy messing around in their virtual reality and ignoring the system. That's happening a lot.
And we define, yeah.
Well,
And we define the mind as a force.
What do you
I just put
say?
in the chat that, just conceiving the mind as the force of attraction on me of the metaphysical unknown. I don't know if it makes any sense.
What builds the mind, Manid?
What I'll call mind is my probing out of what I know.
Yeah, so what builds the mind?
What does?
What builds, what creates the mind?
Relationships.
Relationships. Whatever you're doing in any given moment, you're starting to build your mind, and your mind's starting to assess it. So it's your action, your reaction, and your resultant that builds your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't take any actions, you won't build a mind.
Yes. Naturally, experimenting is part of the mind at work.
Yes. And so as you do that, as you naturally experiment, and as we go through this book, we can start to all see that this is bringing out different things to our mind. And then our minds go away and play with it, and each one of us has a different answer. That's the way it is.
Although I think that this cosmic hierarchy would be great for next week, because then we can go through all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It might be good to just read Synergy here as our last.
I reckon you need to land the plane, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, we got 3 more minutes, and
Now, Steve,
I'm happy to land
learn when something has got exhausted.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
exhausted.
You're getting into overrun.
Yes,
Sure,
and
exactly.
overrun is why people don't come back, is because they get overrun. And
Sure.
one of the skills that you have to learn is, we should have stopped on at the end of hierarchy of generalization, because that would have been a natural place, and then to discuss that through your, how do you feel and what did you take away from it? But to go into that and then to go into synergy is filling in time. And we don't
Sure.
need to fill in time. We're complete.
Okay, good. So Henry, how are you feeling and what's your takeaway tonight?
Hey, I'm feeling great. Really enjoyed the call. A lot of value in that. The hierarchy of generalizations, you know, the sharing of what Anne's doing and seeing how we talked about application. So we're getting into the application, and I think that'll give more value to people, and it'll grow. Love you all, you know, family. This is why I keep coming back, because we are family, that we're a tribe. And the good news is consistency. Kelly and me, we've always talked about who shows up, who's going to turn up. Then you know who's going to be there and put it in. So you've all done the hard yards. We continue. So it really is a blessing and a real joy to come back and see that we continue on the path. So thank you all for that. Susan, how do you feel and what did you get out of today?
I feel exceptionally grateful for all of you and Kelly to have your energy back and to have you like, this is what I always remember of you is helping guide us to application. And thank you. I am enthusiastic about all the stuff I do not know and finding new meaning in stuff that we've been over a bunch of times. But and I'm sorry, I cursed a little, Anne. It was just like, as you're talking about education and where they put you, where these people are trying to make you justify with economics, I'm looking at the bumblebee and watching the processional effects roll off. Raffers, how are you feeling and what are you taking away?
I'm feeling great, actually, and especially great to have again Kelly. I can feel his energy back. I mean, and coming strong. So that's always great to have. And that's been greatly missed. I mean, so again, his contributions really stir the core in a very interesting way as well. Not just his perception, but what Anne contributed as well. We should talk about education and what we do and what Manu did. Again, all the work that goes before these calls and how we put things together and how we made them relevant. I mean, geometry is great. And I actually, because I didn't know anything about geometry before I came to these groups. And so I still find it fascinating, but I agree. It's important to find other connections as well and see how they relate. And it just expands the power of my mind. My takeaway today is, again, the power of this group. I mean, and how we all represent humanity. I mean, people from all over the world, you know, Asia, South America, South Africa, Australia, and we come together and we understand each other. I think, what kind of crazy world we live in where we can all come together like we do in these calls, because that's our design. That was natural. Instead of that, what we've been taught through education, with, again, inverted commas, because it's not real education. Well, we are all different. You know, the Chinese are different. Oh, Black people are different. Ukrainians are different. The Russians are even worse. Whatever. But we look at design. I mean, and that's one of the things I get from this call. If we understand those general principles applied to us as a design, all this craziness is blown away. Because we understand we all share the same design, we share the same future. And we are all related, and how we come together and we work together, how we cooperate, collaborate to make the world work for everybody, not just for a few. Today, for example, I was telling him about the importance of countries and nations. I think, who cares? 1% of humanity has already made this whole world one. And they are managing and controlling everything. It's already happening. And we are concerned about, you know, my flag, my country. I mean, we need to look beyond that. And we need to look again, the way Bucky described it, we've gone from me, you, we, etc., and how we all relate and we all come together. And he includes the idea of nation. But nation, again, in Bucky's words, has a very different meaning as well. He doesn't talk about countries, which is, again, knowing Bucky, absolutely deliberate. So again, what I take away from this call is, again, the power of us as a group and the power of us as a species and what we can do to do what we are supposed to do, not just kill each other. You know? So great call, very grateful. Joe, my friend, how do you feel and what's your takeaway?
I'm feeling very fortunate to be here this evening. And it's good to see everybody. I do treasure this time each week that I get to see you. So I'm feeling very fortunate in that regard. I'm thinking a lot about what we discussed here this evening, just in this in terms of economic systems, and how our goals have always been one thing, growth or whatever, based on supply and demand, based on certain measures that we come to accept as gospel. And I have to admit that, you know, and I put some things in the chat that about certain economists that are thinking differently, that are actually specifically thinking about human nature, understanding systems, creating a regenerative world, and not focusing, being agnostic to growth, so to speak. And I have a hard time getting my head around that, but I think this Synergetics, actually reading the part that we did, is allowing me to at least explore and imagine things a little bit differently. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And it's a hard thing to do. It's hard to get your mind around, to think about well, what do you mean we can not grow and we could actually be all right, or we know we can still provide enough for everybody in the world. And it really gets your mind thinking. And so my mind's going to be racing for a while. You know, I have not read her name's Kate Raworth. I have not read much about her, but she has a whole system that's set up around this, you know, that she's done a lot of research. You know, it does seem to be generally accepted. She's worked at various, you know, pretty prestigious places. But anyway, it's expanded my mind. That's what I really wanted to, that's what I'm trying to say. So this was a really good session for me. I'm definitely going to explore. It just so happened that I was actually reading a little bit about this today, this very topic, prior to our call this afternoon. So it was, and it's all systems based. It really is. And I think that there's a lot of geometry of thought, how energy flows, that we've been talking about over the past few weeks, and how that factors into this as well. That's what she talks about with her donut application towards economics. So anyway, that's what I'm taking away. I'm taking away that, and a few, the hierarchy of accounting has always been something that I've been taking away the past few weeks, as well as just thinking about generalizations as well, how to come up with generalized principles. That's something I've been struggling with for a long time. So, but I'll keep trying. So with that, Anne, have you gone yet? How do you
No.
feel, and what are you taking away from today?
Thank you, Joe. Grateful. I'm so grateful. And thank you very much to every single one of you, because especially as a core group, for us to be able to be away and come back and the whole group is still intact and we're moving forward. Even though I've missed a couple of weeks, it's still possible to come back in and have the realizations. That is really, really powerful. So thank you very much. And today I've written down from every single one of you, there's something that I've written down that's highlighted and starred and so on, that I think I can move with. So literally today I got clarity as and at the same time mud. How to move this forward is the mud. So thank you very, very much. Okay. And Manu, how do you feel and what is your takeaway today?
I'm feeling actually quite surprised. Let me explain. I'm surprised that after 14 years of this call, I'm happy that we still kind of coming back and we still have differences. That means we are learning. I'm also happy that we are flexible in that when there's a challenge, we take it humbly. We might growl a little bit, but that's it. It is a challenge to grow. It's not a challenge to kind of undermine anybody. And that shows the grit, resilience, flexibility, and capability of this group. I'm happy that we're learning. That's my biggest takeaway today, is that I realize that we're really, really learning. And thank to the tribe. Kelly, how do you feel? What do you take away?
How do I feel? I feel like I've got a little bit more energy than when I started, unfortunately. I also feel that I wasn't terribly respectful to Steve, and I apologize to Steve for that, in that I get the amount of work that goes into showing all the different geometries and all the rest of it, but it's still macro. And if we're going to get into the micro, we have to dive into the micro and go macro, micro. So I apologize to you, Steve, for for taking the position. And also, I'm very much a believer that that when you're an overrun, you're an overrun. It's best to stop then, because everyone's an overrun, and so it's a Scientology terminology, overrun. You know, you've done it to death, and it's not that we've done it to death. It's we've done it to death. You know, it's like you look at time, and time will naturally fit in. We're at 2:55 now. Steve's got to go, and he's going to land the plane on time. So that to me is knowing when to do it. So I apologize to you, Steve. My greatest takeaway is, and education is not number 8. Education is number 1. And if you get that and you push that out, you have my 100% support. So thank you. Steve, how do you feel and what do you take away?
Well, I'm really grateful for everybody's participation, and you don't have to apologize for anything. I think that I was looking at time, and I wasn't looking at the natural pause. When that new section started up, it had been perfect. I was just afraid of ending early. So I'll be more in touch with the flow as we go. I love hearing everybody's takeaways and the way they were able to apply everything here. And I'm real excited about you and what you've been doing, and to see that you have made such practical application of all this. And I hope to do the same. That's why I keep coming back and keep looking and keep asking questions. So really good. That's it. And we'll see you next time around.
3 minutes early, Steve. Congratulations.
Thanks, guys. Great call.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.